Hello, colleagues, and welcome to our session. We just experienced some technical difficulties here at the background. So just please bear with us for the next 5 minutes or so while we sort it out. And in the meanwhile, please look in the chat. Make sure that you fill in the in-session registration form, please. Just to make sure that you actually were here and you attended. And then we're looking forward to the session. We have two brilliant speakers today. We're going to talk about cyber welfare. I'm excited about the session. So just another 5 minutes or so, then we will commence with the session. So please just complete the in-session registration so long.
Hi, Isrik.
Hello, Mr. Eric, welcome.
Thank you. Good day, everyone. Sorry for me being late. We had a few hiccups with the technology, and I'm currently experiencing load shedding on my side. So yeah, my apologies. Good day, everyone. Good day, Hafiza, Mr. Mulaji.
Hi, Eric. Greetings, man.
Okay, thank you, guys. Sorry for me being late. Yeah, my apologies, my humble apologies. I think we can start, sir. Hafiza is still with us?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. It's Hafida Ishmael here of WCDE Learning. Yes, Eric, you may go ahead. Everything seems good and ready, and I welcome you all to the Cyber Effect, the launch of the first webinar series for the Cyber Effect, and today's episode is Implementing School Cyber Wellness.
Okay, without any further ado, people, let's continue. Just a short description on the. I just want to give a short explanation on the cyber effect. So yes, the topic of cyber wellness and digital literacy has become a fundamental and crucial part of the 21st century. Now, seeing that we're dealing with COVID now, I believe that we have to change or have a mind shift with regards to how we're going to convey or how we're going to do teaching. Okay, in this setup. I'd like to continue to the following slide. And my name is, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Eric Jacobs. I'm a teacher at Turner's Primary School in Oudtshoorn, plek van die Grootvoels. And through my career span, I've acquired the following. I'm a e-learning district and provincial facilitator. I'm also a WCD cyber ambassador, and I'm an accredited Microsoft trainer. So yeah, I believe in what Gandhi said, and that was, sorry for that. Just want to go back. Be the change you wish to see in the world. So we will have to change our mindset or have a mindset with regards to how we're going to teach in this specific day and age. So yeah, that's me. I'm Eric. So I hope you enjoy the session with us, and please note that this is a very, very valuable session. So yes, so what's our outcomes for today? Our outcomes for this session include the following. It is understanding cyber wellness, understanding the importance of an ICT policy document, and be knowledgeable about it. Remember, you can't copy another school's ICT policy because those documents pertains to that school situation. So you'll have to develop your own ICT policy documents and be knowledgeable about it. Empowering informed behavior in learners and teachers alike, because I do believe that there are still teachers that need to be empowered. Ensuring the safety of the school and the learner data at the school. Ensuring the safe practice. In other words, protecting personal information and why it's important to protect the personal information. How safe or compliant are educational tools and apps? I know there are a lot of tools and apps out there, and people are jumping around. I want to use this app because Eric is using that app, and Eric is using that app, so I want to use the app. But have you checked it out? Okay, have you checked the compliance of the apps or the tools that the other people are using? I believe that they did their research, And then obviously navigating and understanding the app privacy settings. So app privacy settings are very important. With us today, we also got a guest by the name of Mr. Ismail Talaria. He's the Senior Curriculum Planner, Life Orientation, Life Skills, and with the Western Cape Education Department. I'll give over to Mr. Talaria soon, where he'll introduce himself and then obviously just to have a discussion with regards to life orientation and the planning around it. Mr. Talaria, if you with us in the session.
Hi, good afternoon to you, Eric, and to the other supporters in the background, but also to the teachers that have joined us this afternoon.
Okay, Mr. Talaria, I think I'll leave your introduction up first if you want to just do your introduction quickly, and then I'll give over to you to do your presentation on your side.
Okay, so yeah, colleagues, I've got I have 30 years of experience in more than 30 years of experience in teacher training and in being in education. National Teacher Award winner in 2013, the best high school teacher in that year nationally. Been a subject advisor, now senior curriculum planner. I'm a published author, and I'm also a presenter on a community radio station every day of the week. So yeah, that's me, and I'm here to assist you and to help you and to motivate you to be focused on what we're doing within the education sphere, but more specifically within the e-learning culture, e-learning space. It becomes very important that we are focused on that. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Mr. Talaria. Mr. Talaria, I'm gonna take off my screen now and allow you to share your screen on your side. Please do so.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, so good afternoon, colleagues. I'm just trying to get my full screen setting. Great stuff. Okay, so thank you for that, colleagues. And as you can see, we still all captured in terms of exactly the challenges that we face almost on a daily basis. If it's not ESCOM taking our electricity away, then we have other glitches that seem to pop up ever so often. Connectivity issues, getting a link that is slightly incorrect, etc., etc. So we're not going to talk around those negativities today, but we're going to talk about how important it is for us to be engaged in the online space, because as adults, if we look at our kids, you will see that our kids are already playing around with those toys that they call cell phones. They will pick up your smartphone and they will begin to swipe across that smartphone and tell you exactly what they want to watch or what they want to see. So already our learners and even the preschoolers are already up to speed as to what some of the applications on the cell phones are, what they need to press, and how they need to navigate on certain parts of that cell phone that is going to be of meaning to them. Whereas as adults, as teachers, we want to find what is the best apps that are going to help us in the classroom. What are the best apps in which I can communicate with my friends and with fellow teachers, and which are the apps that we will use in order to get our messages across. And if you have a look at this particular slide, I just want you to sit back for a second and just think about where do you fit in your current state of mind. Where does that slot in on those emojis? Because emojis have, and these days stickers have become very much part of our everyday communication. You know, we constantly just look for an emoji if we want to respond to somebody. We look for a sticker that is going to acknowledge a message that we received. So all of these have definite implications in terms of what we do within the cyberspace. And it becomes important for us to know exactly what it is that we are going to pass on to the next person, because that which we pass on to the next person is what has definite implications, whether it is for education, whether it be for personal gain, whether it be for you know, individual communication with a colleague or a friend. All of that has implications, and therefore when we look at emojis, it is very much part of a reflection of who we are when we send those emojis to people that want or are expected to receive that. So the question that I want to pose to you this afternoon is cyber wellness versus cyber safety. When I engaged initially with Ms. Hafiza Ismail in the e-culture sector of our directorate, or in a slightly different directorate, we had a chat about cyber safety or internet safety, and I was busy in life orientation with cyber wellness, and then we had the conversation around the issue of do we talk about cyber safety or internet safety, or do we talk about cyber wellness? And we decided on following the cyber wellness, the cyber effect approach, because with cyber wellness, we're talking about positivity. And we want to bring our learners, our teachers, and our parents into a space where the internet becomes a safe space for everybody to work in. We've seen during the COVID-19 lockdown period that the only communication that we had with our colleagues, with as teachers to our learners and to our parents was via the online connection. Other than that, when everybody was in lockdown, there was no other means of communication. And therefore, we began to see how important it is to work on the internet responsibly, because we wanted to get the best out of it. And so when we talk about internet safety, there is a negative connotation in that we look at being protected, we look at making sure that we don't share anything that we shouldn't be sharing. We're worried about people hacking our phones or hacking our computers. And so internet safety has a negative connotation. And for education, it becomes important to look at the positivity of the internet space. And therefore, we have coined our strategy in terms of cyber wellness. And that is what we want to carry through in everything that we do. We've gone to the point now of teaching online because coronavirus has brought us into that space, and it has in fact propelled us into that space. Whereas 2 years and 3 years ago, the education was talking about getting teachers to work in e-learning. In 2020, we were all propelled into e-learning. We couldn't stand back because the world was moving on. The Western Cape Education Department was moving on and making sure that everybody was in that particular space. So it becomes important to understand that we want to talk around cyber wellness as opposed to internet safety. And we want to move away from the negativity of the internet and look at what are the positives that we gain from working in that internet space. So what we did, and where does life orientation fit into this? We engaged with Google South Africa in working on an online safety curriculum guideline document. In fact, we've established a book which looks at how we introduce the internet in a responsible manner to our learners. So we focused on the high school learners, starting in grade 8, and we looked at specific themes that we ran with each particular grade in order to help the learners in that grade to progress from the one aspect of the internet and moving on to other aspects of the internet and being safe online. So we start firstly with your grade 8s in trying to be safe and to learn about personal privacy and online safety. We go to the grade 9s and we look at using the internet space in a respectful manner, that is developing those values that you have, and also talk about netiquette or the etiquette of using cyberspace. In grade 10, we're looking at Be Smart, where we're taking learners onto the next level on looking at what the advantages are of using the internet, and so using the internet in a smart way in order to help them with their studies, doing projects, looking at careers, etc. When we're looking at grade 11s, now we're beginning to get our learners to be more mature. We're looking at the learners beginning to use that space to their own advantage and using it in a creative fashion. And then for your grade 12s, we're looking at Be Future Ready. And I'm going to talk to the issue of your online space, your online profile, and what that means with regards to opportunities post-school. But more importantly for us as teachers, it becomes important for us to be mindful around the internet space. Why am I saying we must be mindful? Because we are bombarded with a whole host of items that we find either through WhatsApp messages, through Facebook posts, sometimes you will get an email, and the immediate reaction is to fire back, so to speak. And it becomes important for us as responsible users of the internet and all of the apps that is available, that we be mindful before we begin to post things. So why is it important that we are mindful? Before you press the send button, is to just sit back, walk away from your cell phone or walk away from your computer, take a breather, come back, and then have a look at what it is that you want to send off, especially if there is emotion attached to what it is that you want to send. And therefore, the question is always to remain mindful before you send that. It becomes important when you're engaging in group discussions, like this afternoon we are having a discussion, and already there are over 100 teachers on this platform. We had, in our previous activities, we had up to 1,000 people in the webinars, and in some instances we had over 2,000 people in the webinars. And one can easily be carried away in terms of making statements, making comments in the chats that can be derogatory, it can be perceived to be inciting, etc., etc. So it becomes important for us to be mindful when we are using this space. Remember, this is an instant space, so the moment you press the send button, you can't pull it back. If you want to do any apologies, it's going to take a massive process to fire away at apologies if you were to press the send button with lots of emotion attached to it. Passing on messages, especially those chain messages. You get messages from people and all you do is you have a glimpse at it and then you send it off. Or you find something exciting and juicy, you don't check the content of it immediately, and you then just pass it on to your group. Sometimes that can be dangerous. It can be misinformation. if you have not verified the source of the information that you have before you send it on to anybody else, rather sit back and check whether the information is in fact correct. So when we're using the internet space, especially as teachers, we engaging with a number of different groupings of people. We're engaging with parents, we're engaging with colleagues, we're engaging with friends, we're engaging with our learners, and all of these contribute to exactly where we find ourselves, but could also have major implications if we are not mindful of what it is that we post in this particular space. One of the things that we need to be very mindful of is the significance of our internet activity, this cyberspace, because especially for our young people and even for adults, there are issues like sexting, there are issues of to me, the internet being the gateway to sexual activity, sexual harassment, in fact, even sexual bullying. So we need to be mindful. We don't know who's at the other end of what it is that we post, or who's at the other end of who's trying to connect with us, or with our learners, or with our family members, etc. So you need to be careful about making sure that the internet is used in a responsible manner, and that we bring this message across to our learners. We've just seen over the past weekend a video that was posted by learners at one of the top schools in Cape Town, one of the top private schools in Cape Town, and the implications that that particular video has, not only on the school, but also on those learners and their families. And so the repercussions of that is enormous. It could affect learners' lives completely. It could impact on the families completely for the rest of their lives. So we need to be careful, and we need to teach our learners a responsible use of the internet. You know, those very simple emojis that you send, sometimes you send it to a colleague, and it can be misconstrued. If you send an emoji with a little bit of heart in the eyes, it can be misconstrued by the person at the other end, even though it could be a colleague. So it does become important that we are focused on cyber wellness, on using the cyberspace in a responsible manner. Very importantly, colleagues, your social media activity very much speaks to your new CV. So in as much as you put things down in your CV that you're going to submit to prospective bursars, sponsors, or even a new company or new school, people go onto your social media account and they will check up on who you are. They will go onto your LinkedIn and see who you are linked to, what are you posting. They will go onto your Twitter account, your Facebook account, and people have access to this. And therefore it becomes important that not only to yourselves as teachers, but also to your learners, that you bring the message across very clearly that social media is definitely your new CV. I remember having applied for a post, the director in that particular company indicated, I picked up on LinkedIn that the person had gone into my LinkedIn account and had first done, that was a week before I went for the interview, that the person had gone onto my LinkedIn account and to see who I was connected with. So people do that, and it is their prerogative to do that. And yes, we can guard ourselves in terms of that safety, but generally on the public accounts like LinkedIn, like Facebook, yes, there are the privacy settings, but there are people that have ways and means of coming around that. So very importantly, and I've put in that little pic at the bottom right there, before interview, why not suit up on social media? And this is so true in terms of the current situation that we find ourselves with teachers and teachers applying for posts, etc. The schools that you're applying to will also do a social media check on you. And so when you're standing with your fingers pointed in particular directions, and I often speak to learners about that, you know, when they take those photographs and they show 3 fingers in different directions, people misconstrue that as being you know, being part of a gang activity, you being part of that kind of crowd. And even though it is not the case, what is posted on social media can be construed to be a reflection of who you are. So please be mindful of what it is that you put on social media. Then, of course, the big thing as far as our learners are concerned, and even as adults, we focus on the issue of cyberbullying. And this is happening left, right, and center. And colleagues, you know, in as much as we speak to our learners about it, we have to constantly go into this particular space in order to make them aware that simple posts where one learner the term that they use, they diss another learner. It can lead to loneliness. It can lead to the self-esteem issues that the learner may have. It may lead to issues of depression and anger and illness. All of these, because it is on a one-on-one basis, because the person is experiencing this alone on their cell phone. So the family may be quite happy, but in the room there is a learner sitting, and the learner is feeling depressed because of what people or classmates are saying on the internet, or friends are saying on the internet, on a WhatsApp group, or any of the other groups that are available to them. So it becomes important for us to be totally focused on making sure that we combat the issue of cyberbullying, and that we begin to speak to our learners and even to adults around the issue of using the internet responsibly, that we don't need to bully people on the internet, on any of our platforms, because I've seen some pretty nasty statements being made on Facebook with people making derogatory remarks at each other, people lambasting one another in that public forum. So be mindful of that. Again, it becomes important that we begin to make our learners and the public aware that that is not what we want with the internet. It is such a beautiful space to be in, because you have access to so many things. If you want to travel, go and look at the country. If you want to go and live overseas, go and look at that country. If you want a new job, let's see what happens, what is available. All of that is available to you on your fingertips. Why bother with negativity when there are so much positive things happening in the internet space? Then just to wrap up, colleagues, just a couple of things we find with our learners. And I think these cartoons are quite important in terms of how learners see the internet space and what it is that they want to do and talk to our teachers about. So it's just something for you to think and maybe take into your classroom tomorrow morning. And then where are our learners as far as the internet is concerned, that sometimes they find difficulty in reading a hard copy, and they want everything in the internet for them to work through. So it becomes important that we also understand where our learners are coming from, but that we need to support them as best as we can and take them through the cyberspace in a very responsible manner. Thank you, colleagues. That is all from our side. I will be in the talk this afternoon, so if there are any questions, please feel free. I will most welcome any comments or any questions that the colleagues may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lade. Much. Right, colleagues. Since we're dealing with the cyber effect, I just want to add something, and I I just want to inform you that this cyber ethic webinar it forms part of a series of webinars, 8 webinars collected. And each webinar episode will cover a different aspect around cyber safety and education. Each episode also discusses an integrated curriculum within the life orientation curriculum, like Mr. Laria informed us earlier. And then the series fits in within the WCD Teach Professional Development Pathway and in development of the teachers, so school leaders and officials, excuse me. So please, I want to thank you for joining the session, today's session, and I hope it will be an impactful learning session or experience for you. What I'd like to request is that you please sign the register. So go to the registration link, click on the link in the chat pane, and then obviously register for the session. Of course, it forms part of your teacher professional development as well. So let's continue. I want to add the following. I believe that the friend quote add on to what Mr. Laria has mentioned earlier, and that quote is the following. Charles Bates says the Industrial Revolution is 2 phases: one material, the other social. One concerning the making of things, and the other concerning the making of men. So I want you to reflect on our current situation and what we have to deal with. Okay, currently with COVID-19 impacting on the learning, and what I want you to do now is I want you to think about what you think cyber wellness entails. Okay, I'll give you 30 seconds just to think of that. What is your perception of cyber wellness? Now, cyber wellness. Cyber wellness refers to the possible well-being of internet users. And internet users refers to teachers, learners, parents, all of us who use the internet, okay? And it also involves an understanding of online behavior and an awareness of how to protect oneself in the cyberspace. Remember, there's certain behaviors or online behaviors that are acceptable, and there are those that are not acceptable, like Mr. Talaria mentioned earlier. And how do you protect yourself in cyberspace? So our focus is about helping learners to become responsible digital learners, and obviously teachers to become responsible digital teachers as well. And there we see I think that girl is successful because she knows how to behave on the internet and obviously sees a way on how to protect herself in cyberspace. Let's continue. So the cyber wellness framework consists of 3 spheres. And the first one refers to cyber ethics. Then we've got cyber safety, and we've got cyber security. Now those spheres interlinks. Okay, cyber ethics refers to the enact appropriate behavior. Then do not use offensive language, cyberbullying, plagiarism, hacking, using someone else's password, cyber stalking, and then reputational damage. Okay. Obviously, I wanna focus on this one quickly. I want to focus on using someone else's password. I know when we get to school and you have to do something on a computer at school, then usually someone will tell you, "Ah, man, give me your password," or I'll use your password to do my work. But it's imperative that you don't share your password with anyone else, because there are personal information are also on the computers that you use. Or if the person uses your own personal computer, then obviously they must log in as a guest so that they don't have access to your personal information. Right? Then we have plagiarism. Plagiarism refers to where kids have to do an assignment and obviously just go onto the internet and just copy the stuff from the internet. So that information isn't their information, but it is actually plagiarism that's taking place because they're taking someone else's work and trying to make it their own. Now, what does cyber safety entail? Cyber safety entails when in doubt, throw it out. If you don't know anything about it, please don't use it. Okay? And obviously thinking before you act. So you know, phishing scams and the spam out there. Now there's a pop-up on the window on your computer screen, and you've won R1 million. Think, how could you win R1 million if you didn't even enter the competition? Those kind of things. You must think before you act. You get people that they allude into it, and then they act. They act immediately. So please think. Make your passwords unique. Okay, nobody has to know your password. Use different passwords on different devices, and then obviously with the WCD, the rollout of the WCG schools licenses, we've got the two-factor authentication. When you log in, you have to log in with your password, and they'll send you a code to make sure that it is you that's using this specific platform. Then we've got cybersecurity, keeping your software up to date. Okay, using antivirus protection and firewalls, using strong passwords, two-factor or multi-factor authentication as well. Learning about phishing scams, and then protect your sensitive personal identifiable identification. Okay, we'll look into that and why it's important, and the use of public Wi-Fi courses. Okay, I know when we get to CTI, then people usually go, what's the Wi-Fi password, or I want to use the Wi-Fi. Why don't they have Wi-Fi? People, public Wi-Fi isn't secure. Okay, but we'll deal with it later on. This and why it isn't secure. So what's our aim? Is to are cognizant of the digital footprint and the infinite potential of the cyber world, both positively and negatively. Like Mr. Talaria said earlier in his presentation, once it's out there, you can't take it back. It can't be retracted. So it's imperative that you know how it works in the cyber. Sense, think, and act. The approach. Okay. Now, the sense, think, and act approach. I took it from the Ministry of Education from Singapore, their model, and they have the cyber wellness principles. It is respect for yourself and for others, and the safe and responsible use of technology. And then we have positive peer influence. Let's focus on sense first. So what is sense? Sense is to identify the possible risks of harmful behaviors online and how to protect oneself. How do you protect yourself from harmful behaviors? That's the one thing. And the possible risks. Think. You need to analyze, evaluate, and reflect on the online situation based on the three principles of sense, think, and react. Don't just jump into it. Okay? Reflect, analyze it first, evaluate it first, and then reflect on it. And if you find a solution, or you've come to a conclusion, then obviously you're going to act appropriately. Okay? Translate understanding into actions so as to be safe and have a positive presence online. So don't just jump into something. Think sense first, then you think about it, and then you act on it. Okay? And if it doesn't seem right, then you'll know what to do. Let's continue. So what are the key issues to remember in relation to the importance of ICT in education? Okay? And I've got one, online and remote learning. Remember, we currently, since we're facing the COVID pandemic, we've switched from face-to-face learning to the online or e-learning sphere, right? So that's the one thing in relation to that. And then we've got ICT bringing inclusion, right? We've got ICT that promotes higher order thinking skills, because now the children are using apps, they're using devices, and their thinking skills are challenged now. So the ICT promotes the thinking skills, and what's actually nice is the fact that they get challenged with regards to the apps they are using. ICT use strengthen subject learning and ICT capability, right? So you've got a broader sphere. You don't have the textbook, just only the textbook that you work from, but the sphere is broader now, so it strengthens the learning and the ICT capability, the use of the ICT, put it like that. ICT in education improves engagement and knowledge retention. Remember, we don't all learn at the same pace. So what it does is, it also allows for effective differentiation instruction with technology. If you've got a learner that's learning at a slower pace, then if he uses an app, then obviously he can use it and learn at his own pace. And what's also nice about using the app is that he can reflect on his learning, because he gets his results in immediately. All right. Let's continue. So, the implementation of school cyber wellness and the ICT policies. So I'm gonna stop here a bit, because this is an imperative part of what we want to cover. The implementation of ICT or the school cyber wellness. Cyber wellness lessons, that must form part of our curriculum now. Okay, so if your planning should be of that you include cyber wellness lessons in your life orientation or other lessons. Part of that forms the life orientation curriculum that Mr. Talaria mentioned, the inclusion of it in your cyber wellness lessons. We also have the WCD teacher sidekick that you can use for reference purposes, or you can use it to get your information from. And then obviously the e-learning teacher and professional development plans that are set out, like the cyber wellness webinars that we are hosting currently. We also have the school-wide programs. So what's going to happen in your school? What you can do is you can have assembly talks on cyber wellness. You can also include a cyber wellness workshop or workshops. Then we have cyber wellness activities. We have cyber wellness day. Think of a specific day or plan a specific day on your year calendar, and then include the cyber wellness day where you do cyber wellness activities. And we have the cyber wellness learner ambassadors. Now the cyber wellness learner ambassadors will have to undergo training, and they will be responsible to ensure that cyber wellness is practiced at the school. What do we have to bear in mind when developing our policies? Okay, number one, policy development is a very time-consuming task, so you need to persevere. You can't do it in one day, because that plan will change. With due time, the plan will change. Okay, so it's imperative that you make time or plan to do your to develop your policy. When doing research and gathering your information, it should be national. You should include the national and provincial acts and regulations, and they will set your parameters within which your school communities can develop their own policies. Okay, like I said earlier, every school will have to develop its own policy. When doing your research, use examples of policies from other schools. Okay, I believe that they'll be more than willing to help and assist in the process, but you need to bear in mind that your policy or the interest of your policy wouldn't be the same as the other schools. The policy should also consider the interest of the school communities, which includes the social media, images, video, and learning and teacher personal information. Right? The policy must address current and future resources and must be reviewed every 2 years. But I would suggest that you review it every year because things change, okay? As we go on, things will change and the policy has to be reviewed. So it's actually good practice to review it every year. For proper strategic planning, include in your ICT policies acceptable use policies, the agreement for teachers, learners, and administration. But what you need to add there as well is you need to add the parents there as well because they must form part of the policy and they need to adopt the policy, seeing that we're working with underage persons. And finally, remember that your school is unique and it has its own unique needs, which your policies should reflect. So let's look at the 4 principles for policy development. It should be consultative, so everybody should have a say in the policy, consult with all the role players. There should be accountability. It should be transparent and obviously fairness. If you have consulted, you need to know who's going to be accountable and what they're going to be accountable for. It needs to be transparent so everybody understands what the policy is about and what it entails or entitles. And then obviously the fairness in the policy. So one of the resources that you can go to is the policy on cell phone use in the classroom. Since we're all going to, or since many of us are using cell phones in our classrooms now, and it's available on the WCED Western Cape Sidekick, Teacher Sidekick. Ensuring safe practice, the protection of personal information. And this is where the POPI comes in, or the POPI Act. Now, what's the purpose? The purpose of the POPI Act is the protection of personal information. Okay? It is to protect people from harm by protecting their personal information. For example, to stop their money being stolen or to stop their identity being stolen. And generally, to protect their privacy, which is a fundamental human right. And Mr. Talaria mentioned earlier about his, if I'm correct, his Instagram account that was hacked. So it's important that you know the POPI Act when it comes to the ensuring the safety and obviously ensuring the data or the protecting the data of your staff, your teachers, and your learners. I want to continue there with learner data, right? So processing the personal information of children is prohibited unless one of the following jurisdictions are present. So there are laws that prohibit the processing of personal information when it comes to children. A parent or guardian can consent to the processing. That's the one part. If there is no obligation imposed on you by law, if it's required by law that you process the information or distribute the information, then obviously there is no obligation. Then the processing is necessary to carry out, if the processing is necessary to carry out actions for the conclusion or performance of a contract to which the data subject is party. I know SASA requires certain information from us. So yes, that's also part of it while we process it. Then processing complies with an obligation imposed by law on the responsible party. And the prohibition also doesn't apply if the child deliberately made the personal information public with the consent of a parent or a guardian. So if the parent or guardian consented to the distribution of the information by the child himself or herself, then obviously the prohibition doesn't apply. And the resource that we use or that you can use is the POPI Act. And the category I'm referring to is children. So ensuring the safety of school and learner data. Why is the safety of learner data imperative? Okay, always obtain the child's information directly from the parent and not from the child. So you obtain the information directly from the parent or guardian. In that way, the act of handing over the information doubles as a permission to use it. The parent must be aware for what the information will be used. I know that what we usually do is we have our websites and we have our school information pages and we have Facebook accounts for our schools, etc. But have we got the consent of the parent to distribute the information that's on our website or the pictures of the children? Do we have consent to do it? Okay, I know that we post the listings of the kids that finished top in the grade, but do you have consent from the parent to post the listings? Right? Where the child's personal information is going to be disclosed to a third party, you need consent for that. Third parties might refer to companies selling apps to the schools as well. If the child's details is going to be used for a marketing purpose, if the information is going to be made public, if the child's image is going to be used on a website, which is open to the public, and where the child is going to be asked for personal information of for third parties like family members or friends, excluding, of course, the parents' details. How else could you get parental consent? You need to think of it, okay? So that's why it's imperative that you have to design a form on which you ask for consent from the parents before using the learner's data. I know we're all familiar with this picture over here, right? We've seen it. I'm a teacher. I've seen it many times. You know, you sit at the end of the school year, you're struggling to complete this as well, right? So the common questions around learner data. Why should we as teachers care about student privacy? Okay. Now, there are legal and ethical restrictions that impact on districts, schools, and teachers. Something I've seen is the memes being made on social media with regards to learner information. Right? If you post a question paper with the learner details or the learner information, and you actually acting unlawful, right? Because those information or that information should never be posted online. And what constitutes student data? And what is education records about? Now, everybody asks, is this part of student data? Is that part of student data? Aren't they giving us extra administrative tasks? Remember, I'm going to show you now what student data entails. So the first part is obviously the demographics. If you look at the learner profiles, it starts with the age, the race, the gender, the economical status in some cases, and obviously the special education needs. That's the demographics of it. Then we've got the academic observations, the growth, the courses he's enrolled, the enrollment, the grades he passed, and the grades they had to repeat, the completion of the grades, and obviously the graduation. Then we've got the actions, attendance registers, behavior, activities, sports participation. We also got testing, quizzes, tests, assignments, and assessments. Right? I know of an example where the teachers went around with the child's test, and they made a mock of it. Okay, they made fun of it. Right? Then we've got the observations made by teachers or the engagements by teachers. Remember, you have to have interviews in certain cases with the kids or with the learners. Right? Those information are part of student data. And we've got information by the learners themselves. Obviously, their homework or the learning apps that they use, etc. So the information that appears in the learning app also forms part of school data. Digital tools. Like I said in the beginning, we usually go around asking what apps are you using or what tools are you using? How can we use it at our school? Okay. So what should I do if a student suggests an unvetted app to use for a project? So what should you do? As a teacher, you cannot officially endorse the use of an outside product, but you can explain to the student the considerations they should take into account, including recommending the student let the parents know too. Okay. So this is I deem this a teachable moment. Why? Some tools has already been vetted by the WCED, and these tools or the educational apps or websites, etc., can be found on the WCED teacher sidekick. And there I've got the link for you, WCED online westerncape.gov.za e-learning. And I know that some of you have seen this picture before, but sometimes we scroll over the stuff because we don't have time to look into pictures or into other on other websites and stuff. So how safe or compliant are the educational apps or tools that we use? Now, the questions you can ask yourself is one of the following, okay? 1, did you have to make an account in order to start using that app? If so, did you ever have to provide personal information? For instance, your email, your name, your age, etc. Okay? Does the app require parental permission? And who has access to your email and other information now that you've created that account? Does the app developer share your information with others? Are there any third parties involved? It's in their privacy policy. When we get to privacy policy, you'll see what I mean by that. Does the app collect additional information, such as your location or your contacts? Some apps require you to approve your contact list, the sharing of your contact list, right? And why do they do it? Now, let's continue to the navigation and the understanding of app privacy. So, privacy, the privacy policy of an app. Okay. So, the privacy policy of an app is a legal statement on how the party, okay, the person responsible for the app, how they gather your information, your personal information, and how they share it. Now, what's important is never skip the fine. I know that we sometimes skip it and we just say, yes, blah, 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 blah. Have you read through the fine print and what it says in the fine print? Because the fine print allows them to get information from you and to share your personal information, right? If you agree to the fine print. Avoid using third-party apps and unrecognized app stores. And obviously, deleting unused apps. Sometimes it happens that you download an app from the internet and you stop using it at a certain time because you don't find it useful anymore. So what do we do? We just stop using it. But we never delete it. Remember, while the app is on your device, it also sends information to the app developers as well, although we are not using it. Managing your online privacy. So we're all familiar with this sign over here, Wi-Fi hotspot. Whenever they see it, and kids are also like that. Whenever they see a Wi-Fi hotspot, they're super interested in the hotspot. So due to the nature of our schools having devices in the classroom as well as working online and being exposed to the online remote education, we have to ensure that we always are conscious of our online identity and how we're managing our privacy. So I want to share a few tips with you as teachers, and obviously you can see it with your learners as well. Secure your devices. Make sure that you have strong passwords. Right? That's the one thing. Think before you act. Think before you act. Think twice before granting permission to certain apps. Okay, especially if they are not needed for the app to work. Like in some cases, they want to access your contact list, but is it necessary for the app to access your contact list? Okay, because that might just reveal contact details, and what the app developers do is they contact the persons with the premise that you requested them to contact them. Now you see me, now you don't. All right? Free Wi-Fi hotspots can be tracked. And they can track your location even if you don't connect to them. You don't even have to connect to the free Wi-Fi hotspot to be tracked, okay? So whenever you go to a public place, disable your Wi-Fi and your Bluetooth if you're not going to use it, because this can reveal a detailed profile of someone's daily habits, okay? People will know, or developers will know, you frequent certain places and at certain times, etc. Like for instance, where you shop, where you live, and what places you frequent at certain times. Those data can be laid bare out there. Okay. Then we've got getting savvy with hotspots. Getting savvy about hotspots. Public wireless networks and hotspots are not secure. Remember I said it earlier, it's not secure, which means that anyone can potentially see what you are doing on your mobile device or any device that's connected to that hotspot. Limit what you do on public Wi-Fi, right? Avoid logging into key accounts like your email and your financial services, because these services can be hacked through these public hotspots. Now, reporting cybercrime. How do we go about reporting? Okay. But first, what does cybercrime mean? Cybercrime means any criminal or other offense that is facilitated by or involves the use of electronic communications or information systems, including any device on the internet or any one or more of them. Right? The term cybercrime is used to cover a wide variety of criminal conduct. Okay, one approach can be found in the Convention of Cybercrime, which distinguishes between 4 different types of offenses. The first offense is offenses against the confidentiality, integrity, and availability, of computer data systems. Then we've got computer-related offenses, where computers are used for crime purposes. Content-related to offenses, and the copyright-related offenses, where we have plagiarism and stuff. How do we go about reporting cybercrime? I want to focus on the following quote. The interesting thing about cybercrime in the whole cyber world is that many of the people that are most proficient in it are young people, really young people. And that was said by Patricia Arquette. So it sometimes happens that you get home and you've got an app on your device and the app doesn't work. The kids are clever. They know how to use the devices. They know how to use the apps, and they will show you how an app works and how you use it. So that's why where this quote comes in. That it is the young people who are very proficient in using the technology and to make them open to cybercrime. So how do you go about reporting it? What can teachers or schools do? First, take a screenshot, or take screenshots. Record all the details of the perpetrators. Block them on social media. Delete the content. Protect the victim. Report the posts to the police, and apply for protection order. Right? Those are the tips you can follow when you want to report cybercrime. So yes, thank you everyone. This doesn't conclude my session yet. Please join us for the other webinars, and then I've got the webinars on screen now. The first one on the 29th. The next webinar will be on the 29th of March, creating safe digital learning space. And then we've got online decision effect on the 19th of April 2021. Social media is inevitable, the 10th of May. Reimagining the influence of cyber safety in education on the 24th of May. Say what? A focus on the responsible communications. Cyber psychology, empowering techno-social culture, and the heroic content creation. Please note that these sessions all relate to each other. Okay. If you want more information, I'll give you the contact details of our project lead for the Cyber Effect webinar series. It is Hafiza Ismail, the WCD Director at E-Learning, Deputy Chief Education Specialist E-Culture, and their email address. Ishrik.
Yes, I'm here.
Are there any questions?
Yes, we do. First of all, thank you for a very informative session. I've learned a lot personally. So we have a few interesting questions here. The first question we're gonna quickly publish. This is from Mr. Taladia. I'm gonna quickly publish it so that you can see it on your side as well. The question is, cyberbullying is a serious issue. How do we implement this via policy in terms of severity? Is there a guideline, as many may see cyberbullying differently, and is its any severity? So, Mr. Taladia, this question is posed to you.
Okay, thank you for that question. There's no distinction between the severity of cyberbullying. Cyberbullying as such is treated across the board in the same manner, and if there is any cyberbullying that is suspected, then it must be reported immediately firstly to the school. I think that is where it needs to start, and then from the school, if the matter is of such a nature that it requires deeper investigation and it has a broader impact, then it will be elevated to the next level, which would probably be the district, and so it could go through the process. But first and foremost, it must be reported to the school immediately for the school to see whether its school policy, is able to address the matter.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Taladia. We have another question here. This one is posed to Mr. Eric. This is regarding the POPI Act. So I'm going to post this one, I'll publish this one as well in the chat. I'm going to read it as well.
Okay.
Okay, let me just see if it came through. Let me just publish it again. There we go. Okay, how will the POPI Act affect schools when it comes into effect from July 2021? This is now around the corner. And I think this is regarding the issue of handling student information and parents' information. So how will schools need to get themselves ready to handle or be in, let's say, in line with the POPI Act?
If they follow the webinars, then more information will be shared with them, Ishrik. And then the other thing is, with regards to the POPI Act, we've got the site, the teacher site, where they can gain more information regarding the POPI Act. And obviously, what's imperative that they need to know is that the dispensation or the dissemination of student data. It's imperative that that data be kept private, because the student data or the information on the student data systems, like on CMS, shouldn't be distributed to anyone else, except when requested by law. I hope that answers your question.
All right, thank you, Mr. Eric. Mr. Taladia, is there anything you want to latch onto that POPI Act?
Yeah, I think Eric has covered that, but I just want to make reference to that first question, and I want to go back to what transpired at the private school in Cape Town, at the boys-only school, that the video had been circulated of an act between two boys, and a number of other boys were part of watching this particular act carrying on. So the video was circulated amongst the learners first, and then the parents and the school community got hold of the video. So there is a process that needs to be followed, where the school tried to block the video, called in the parents and the learners, and then obviously there is an investigation happening currently. But that is a very serious matter, and obviously there's police and crime issues that are involved in that particular activity. But just to say to everybody that there is no distinction really between a minor cyberbullying act and a major cyberbullying act. Cyberbullying must be seen as being criminal in its intentions. And therefore we must see it as such.
Thank you, Mr. Talaria. There's actually another question regarding cyberbullying. So I'm going to quickly poll through that one also in the chat.
Right.
Okay. So what is the role of the schools to protect learners against cyberbullying? And I think this is at schools, like you mentioned now with that incident. These things are happening now at schools and from the devices at school as well. So how can we as a school get ourselves ready to protect our learners?
I think the most important thing is, and Eric pointed out to that right at the beginning, when he said that each school must have its own policy. So each school needs to develop its own cyber usage policy, its ICT policy, and based on that particular policy, the school will be able then to follow whatever procedures. It will categorize particular acts that learners may find themselves in. It may look at those issues of privacy. It may be sharing of information. So the school's own ICT policy will determine exactly what action the school will take in terms of addressing a particular issue. And it becomes important now that every teacher that is on this particular site and every teacher within the WCED needs to have the online activity policy and ICT policy that would address any of these misdemeanors. And with the fact that the POPI Act is coming into legislation, means that needs to be added to the school policy. So your school policy has to be a dynamic policy. It cannot have been drafted 5 years ago and today it is still exactly the same policy with no amendments. It becomes important that the school and the school, as you have your disciplinary teams and your financial committee, so you must have an ICT committee. Because the nature of the online space is a very dynamic space, and therefore the people that work in that particular space that manage the school's policy, they need to be at the cutting edge of everything that's happening, new trends, new devices, new apps. They need to be on top of those things.
All right, thank you, Mr. Talaria, for that. Just one more question. This is not from my side. When I'm listening to the POPI Act, we as teachers, we are not much familiar with what the POPI Act really entails. So when I actually was told about what the POPI Act really means to us as a school, as a teacher, I was shocked because I realized actually that we're actually not in line with the Act. So my question is actually a general question. Will there be some sort of training for teachers or for schools just to make sure that we're actually in line with the POPI Act when it comes to setting up our policies and so forth? Or will it be up to us as schools to make sure that we get ourselves ready? Anything on that, Mr. Talaria?
I think
Maybe
it's going to be. I
maybe I
think
can.
it's going to be going to be important that that the directorate at head office, there is a directorate that deals with all e-learning activities. That particular directorate does the necessary investigation and reduces the POPI Act and takes out the salient factors that affects our teachers directly. But also the whole school population. So that is some homework that needs to be done by the directorate, so that the e-learning directorate, so that that can be disseminated to every school and should in fact be disseminated to every teacher in the province.
Thank you, Mr. Talaria. Anything you want to latch on, Mr. Eric? You see, you wanted to say something?
Now there is specific guidelines, not specific guidelines, but there are guidelines on the WCD's website, on the Cyber Wellness e-learning website. So people can go onto the website and get information there if they need guidelines.
Okay.
And like Mr. Talaria said, every school has to have their own ICT, and with regards to, there was a specific thing that would come to the with regards to school, what I'm going to get, remember, school love kids to buy, and that's why it's imperative there or important in the sense that the devices that they bring to school, okay, there should be a policy, and they should sign the policy as to how the network used, and obviously your blacklist with regards to when it comes to connectivity in the school. So certain sites will be blocked on the blacklist, and certain sites will be allowed on the whitelist.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jacobs. Just one more question, Mr. Talaria, that
Yes,
came
sir.
through. I'm gonna quickly post that one as well. I'm gonna quickly read it as well. Okay. How can we create cyber safety education awareness in the whole school environment? Yeah.
Okay, so what we have done is, okay, so I already have an answer for that. Is we have established a working relationship with Google South Africa. We have, with the assistance of our subject advisors, developed a cyber safety curriculum guideline document, which is available to every school in the province. We will make, and at this point in time, it is only focused on the high schools, and I did allude to that in the presentation. It is going to be on, well, I think it's already on the WCD website, and so schools can use that. In fact, there are some lovely lessons that have been posted onto that particular website, and it is in the hard copy book. And so people can use the QR codes, or they can use the links that a teacher can use in the classroom to speak around online safety, to speak around how people can get hold of your identity. So there are video clips available and attached to every lesson, and I can guarantee you that the teachers will find these lessons extremely exciting, because we've gotten the experts to put those lessons together, and when a teacher can, any time of the year, from grade 8 to grade 12, and I would even encourage our grade 7 and our grade 6 teachers to begin to use some of these lessons in order to bring across to our learners the importance of the online safety.
Thank you, Mr. Talaria. It sounds really exciting, and I know this is something that we as teachers need to embrace as well, because we are actually the role models that must show our learners how to use or how to use the internet effectively and efficiently. So once again, thank you. Any final inputs from, I'm going to start with Mr. Talaria, then I'm going to go to Mr. Jacobs. Any final inputs for the teachers that is in the session that they can take home and think about?
I think very importantly, first and foremost, this particular activity we're going to be carrying through for the next, we're going to have another 7 sessions after this. But important for our teachers to stay at the cutting edge of what is happening in the internet space. Secondly, I think it's important that teachers need to practice that mindfulness. That teachers need to be the exemplars of what is happening as far as social media responsibility is concerned, and also to practice netiquette. And I think if we as teachers, if we all of us do that as officials, then we are setting the tone for our learners, and we can give guidance to our learners on the issues that affect them directly. Please note that we are in a dynamic space, and therefore we will continue with these types of seminars, with these types of activities, in order to better inform you, the teacher, but also so that we can better inform our parents and our learners. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and I will be available to chat to teachers going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tularia. Mr. Jacobs, the main presenter. We would like to hear your final inputs.
I would like to thank everyone who participated in today's session or registered for today's session, and please, and I want to encourage them to please register for the upcoming webinars that are still there. Please not that, like I said earlier, these webinars form part of a greater part, and it will be very informative. I know that my colleagues will bring out the best, and once again, thank you very, very much for the opportunity. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jacobs. Just from my side, what I've listened and I've taken some notes. So I just want to reflect back on 1 or 2 things. I think the digital footprint that we leave in the cyberspace is very important. And here we as teachers need to come in and say, listen, this is how you need to do it, so that our learners can see. So teachers, be mindful of what we post, and we have a few tips that we received. Think before we act, and let us don't just react if something happens in the cyberspace or on social media. Then also something interesting about the apps that you mentioned is to be mindful of just downloading any app, and to make sure about the fine print and all of that. We're in that space now that doesn't matter if you use a phone, we can be tracked irrespective if you're using WhatsApp or any other social media platform. But that we just be mindful of what we post and how we portray ourselves on our social media platforms as well. Then I just want to, before we conclude, just want to thank the presenters, but there's one person, Hafisa Ismail. She is the brains behind the whole cyber effect webinars, and it all started back in 2019 when we started with the cyber effect rollout. So Hafisa, I'm not sure if she want to say something, but for Hafisa, thank you for compiling this and putting this all together. We appreciate it. Thank you for the vision. She just informed me she's not gonna say anything, so thank you, Hafisa. And I also just want to say to our presenters, thank you very much. And to all the participants, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule after school, going home, being hungry, coming fully energized to this session. So once again, thank you so much for being here and for your time. And remember, there's next few sessions as well. So check your schedule, and we look forward to see all of you in our next session. So be blessed. Thank you very much. And that's it. Thank you.
Goodbye. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.